Good morning. We'll call this Wednesday morning Criminal Justice Committee meeting to order. Start with roll call, please.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Byrne?
Present.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Okay.
Mr. Snipes?
Present.
Ms. Dunbar?
Present.
Ms. Parker? Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Carrico?
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Ms. DiColo?
Present.
Mr. Sponson?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Kirkstra?
Present.
Mr. Hunter?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Here.
Mr. Searoy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
I have not received anything for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Any public comment? Moving on for the approval of minutes of August 12th, 2020. Take a motion, Mr. Long, second by Mr. Byrne. Have a roll call vote by Zoom.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Ms. DiColo?
Aye.
Mr. Sponson?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Up next is the Chief Judge. I have nothing from the Chief Judge this morning. Move on to the Circuit Clerk's office. In your package, you have a copy of the monthly reports from Sandy. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Long, second by Mr. Smith. Comments on your report, Sandy?
Good morning. No, nothing really. It's just the normal report. If anybody has any questions, it's what money was collected and then dispersed to all those different funds and agencies.
I got a question for you, Sandy. How long has that roadside memorial fund been in there?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. As long as I know.
I don't think I've ever seen it before like that.
Yeah. There's a few interesting ones in there, that's for sure. If you want, I could look it up and let you know.
Would you please?
Pardon?
Any other, Mr. Hunter?
Yes,
Oh.
Sandy, Steve Hunter here. Last time I posed a question to you regarding the implementation of your computer system. You said that had been taken some years for implementation. Had you ever thought about identifying what the vicissitudes are and what the issues are regarding implementation? And could you give me the genesis of when it started and what's your timeline for completion?
Mr. Hunter, we're on the reports right now. When we get to computerization, would you repose or
That's fine.
ask that question?
Thank you very much,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything else on the reports first? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call for the Zoom.
Mr. Lear?
Oh.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Ms. DiColo?
Aye.
Mr. Sponson?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, Mr. Hunter, go ahead.
Yeah, my apologies, Madam Clerk, for being preemptive. The questions still remain. You had articulated at the last meeting, if I was correct, that this has taken some period of time. You know, what are the roadblocks and the technical difficulties that you're having as far as implementing it, as well as the timetable, when you started, the genesis, and when you hope to complete it? And have you called in for technical assistance to fully implement this and work out the bugs?
Absolutely yes to all of those questions. Last Friday, I had a Zoom call with Tyler. On the call was Tyler Technologies, project manager, Courtview manager, project manager, the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts, there are two staff members, well, more than two staff members, 3 or 4 staff members that were on the call as well, and then myself and my chief deputy. And they're still working on the fixes. We're not their only customer, and you know, they know that I'm beyond frustrated with the process, but the process is that they, you know, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of codes that need to be connected, and whenever they then, when we test it, that's when we're finding the different errors and bugs, and so then it has to go to the one, and then they, whichever, you know, I mean, it goes back and forth to whichever vendor. We're at the point now where Tyler said that they will be working on it for the next 2 weeks, and then we will get the file back to test again. This is all for all the civil cases. So, you know, under the civil cases, there's probably 50 or 60 different case types under the different categories. And then from that, there's all the different docket codes that need to make sure that they're connected. So it is a long and tedious project. We've been working on it for 2 years. We are the only county in the state of Illinois with court view, which is, you know, it's kind of a situation, but it's one that we have to work through. Everyone is just as excited to get moving on it as I am, and they feel that this next fix should be the fix. So we are meeting again, I think in the end of September. I didn't write down the date, but we're meeting at the end of September again to talk and see where we are with the project.
And you indicated it has taken 2 years. Is that a date specific?
Well, we were supposed to be integrated, it's been a little more than 2 years. We were supposed to be integrated in 2018. So I don't have the exact date right now at my fingertips as to when the project started. I do know that there are, you know, other counties have said that they've had the same thing. We're not the only one that isn't integrated yet. There's probably 5 of us in the state, and they echo the same issues that we're having. So while it's a hindrance for us, it's not, we're not the only ones, and they're working as best that they can.
So are you saying that, and this is my last question.
Sure.
So you said other counties are similarly situated. Let me ask you this then. Several, does that mean 5? Does that mean 7? So if it's 7, that means that 95 counties are in compliance and there's 7 that are not?
Correct, something like that. I don't have the exact number, but that's the idea, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Some of those counties are bigger counties too. St. Clair County, McLean County. McLean's similarly situated as we are. You know, there's a few.
Any other questions on the computerization? We sort of skipped over your Harris report and the state's attorneys.
Yep, so as you can see or I don't know if you have the reports in front of you, but the state's attorney report, we're pretty similarly situated as we have been in the past years in the month of August, so that's not anything unusual. The Harris numbers, the last time we were this low with collections was 2017, but I think this year, well, I know this year, they've not been pushing their collection efforts. They're being compassionate and empathetic with the you know, the way the world is right now and how people don't have the money to pay. So if people are able to pay, then, you know, that's where the money is coming in. But they're not pushing the hard line like normal. So you can look at it as a good thing or a bad thing. I'm kind of, you know, I'm understanding as to why. So
Any other questions or comments for Sandy? Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yep. Up next, State's Attorney, Mr. Rowe. In your package, you have a copy of the grand jury report and a grand jury statistics report. Take a motion to combine and approve those reports. Mr. Byrne, second by Mr. Snipes. Comments on your report, Jim?
So this is the first grand jury report you've had probably since either the March or April meeting. And you can see through grand jury, we've indicted 247 individuals for felony charges year to date. Total, however, because we have been filing felonies, and instead of them going to grand jury, they're going to preliminary hearings. So total for this year so far, we're at 540 felonies, so close to 200, and what would that be, 93, almost 300 have been filed outside of the grand jury process, which creates a lot more work for our office, especially for the public defender's office. We try to get them the reports a few days in advance of preliminary hearing. They've been so just professional about it. If they believe that based on the reports, if the probable cause is met, we may not proceed to hearing. And in some instances we have, and that's worked out well. So we're thankful for that cooperation, everyone kind of recognizing just the volume of caseload that's coming through. And the prelims can take up a lot of time. You know, if you have to go to hearing on all of those, you could certainly tie up 1 or 2 courtrooms for quite a while. So we're at 540, compare that to 2018 and 2019 numbers. In 2018, at this time, we were at 514. In 2019, we were at 633. So we're somewhere kind of right in the middle of where we've been in the past couple of years. And then misdemeanors year to date, we filed 514 misdemeanor cases. Anyone have any questions about those reports?
Mr. Hunter.
Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong. A couple things, Jim. Could you discuss the drug-induced homicide conviction as well as the initiative that your new intern is making in the community? I think I read something in the paper recently, and I heard him at a dinner meeting at Senator Joyce's initiative over at Paul's before the shutdown. Could you ramp us up on those 2 issues?
I'm actually going to have Hamim Lillard, who's the individual you talked about. I'm going to have him give a small presentation next month to the Criminal Justice Committee. So I'll save that stuff for him to talk about. But
can you give us a little oversight? Can you give us a little oversight of what he's doing?
Sure.
Now?
Yeah, so we partnered with District 111. They're covering the expense.
Hold on, Jim. Point of order, Mr.
We
Whalen.
have a motion second on the floor to approve the
Okay.
reports first, and then we can
Thank
get
you.
into that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was
right.
one. Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Start with a Zoom.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar,
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Mr. Carrico,
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff,
Aye.
Ms. Zucolo,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Chairman. Okay, Mr. Hunter, or Mr. Rowe, go ahead.
You don't see Commissioner Hunter get called out for a point of order very often.
Yeah, no, you
You
don't.
better mark the date and time on that one.
Yeah.
No, you know,
Well, but he
Hamim
asked
has
for
started with our
questions.
office through a partnership with District 111. His job is to really do some outreach with the community. And again, you know, the focus is on keeping juveniles, young adults, kind of on the right path. He can speak more, you know, to his perspective at the next meeting, but someone who's been through foster care system, juvenile justice system, the adult criminal system, and then got it right and went to college, and since then has done all the right things. So I think he's a success story, and he's going to be able to hopefully bring that story and that reality to a lot of other kids in our community and show them that there is a way you can do it, and he's a great example of it. On the drug-induced homicide, I'm not going to comment too much on that because the case is still pending. There's some post-trial motions and possibly sentencing. So let that process kind of, you know, be completed, I guess, before we talk too much about that case.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When Jim talked to me about this originally, when it was an idea getting formulated into reality, if you look at the cost the county bears to do this, it's minimal. Basically, if we keep one kid out of detention, that pays for it. And then after that, it's, if you just do the federal reimbursement that we get, math, whatever, just use that as a baseline. It's exponential down the road. So if we get 10, we're a much better community financially and obviously socially as well. So it makes sense all the way around.
Thank you. Hey, oh darn, Mr. Snipes.
I didn't want Jim to just think I was just going to just let him go that easy, but I've heard the I mean, I've heard the little story. Believe I've had them as a student at some point, but my concern, because I love the positive stories, and most times people will hear them. I come out of the projects of Chicago, which is the Robert Taylor homes, and certainly know firsthand what education can do, because my mother graduated summa cum laude, but then when she died, we wind up in foster homes and come through the story. So we know the story, and we know the story well, but my question is, after the story is told, will we have the resources to back it up? And that's I guess the elephant on the other side of the fence is, we can tell the story, but if we don't have the resources, like with me, to subsidize the gangs, they drafted me in the Cobra Stones, something I didn't want to be, but they had something called the junior police. And when I became a junior police, only mistake I ever made was trying to go back and arrest the Cobra Stones. I had to run. But that gave me something on the positive, or whatever. Also being in the Boy Scouts, that gave me something on the positive that was able to be an alternative. And I'm worrying, do we have the resources to kind of have something that offsets? I don't want you in the gangs. Here's something you can do. Here's the junior police. Here's the Boy Scouts. Here's the whatever. So do we have resources available to offset it once we tell the story?
Sure. You know, I think that sometimes we wait for the money until we try to do something, so then oftentimes the money doesn't come and nothing gets done. The resources we have, Hamim is a resource. District 111 has been a great resource. You know, we do have R3 grants out there that would complement what we're doing with young individuals and for the board. The R3 grants is the marijuana money basically that the state has put into certain regions. So we've got some grants out there. You know, parents are a resource. It'd be great, you know, to see parents become more involved in the lives of some of the kids that we see coming through our system. But sometimes you have young parents who have been through the system themselves and need help. So I think there's a lot of resources available that are just beyond, you know, dollars and cents. And if we can prove that we can run this program and make a difference with those resources, I'm sure that the money will hopefully shortly follow with the grants. But we can't just do nothing and wait for the money to come, because then you're going to have another school year go by and maybe another kid drop out, and it's just going to be so much harder to get them back in if we take that approach.
Right, I agree.
We're trying to do what we can do, you know, with what we have where we're at now.
Mr. Hunter.
Not to debate, Commissioner, but I think the state's attorney articulated a full partner in this program with the state's attorney, R3 grants, as well as School District 111. The impact of that, that's like another person on the ground and who will suppress some of the crime statistics. So I think probably that he's worth his weight in gold in terms of what I've seen in the newspaper, what I heard him articulate at the dinner meeting, And with the oversight of the state's attorney and Dr. Walters, your boss, it's going. Well, anyway, she sets up the budget and so forth, and who pays you. But anyway, I'm not here to debate that, Commissioner. What I'm saying, though, the resources are there, and I think they pay dividends regarding him interfacing with our underserved and those kids who are more prone to involve themselves in maladaptive behavior. And I'm just saying, you know, for something like that, we got to support it in any kind of way we can in terms of not only resources fiscally, but other kind of in-kind support that we may be able to develop.
Well, with the note, I have no objection to that. I have no objections. What we're saying is, or what I'm saying is, I just want to make sure that after this is done, that there are adequate resources that's going to at least get these individuals involved. So many times we introduce it, kids want to change, and at some point, like when I was at the Big Brothers Club, it was great as we were doing it, but then when it disseminated, when the grant was defunded and things of that nature, the kids again were left without a remedy or a resolve. And what I'm saying is, we want to make sure something is constant. Keep the program, get it going. When I'm saying the parents getting involved, that's an intangible benefit in it because most of these people are in poverty. So we need to have something in place to keep it going, like with the churches, with everything, so that program will not fail, but that it will keep fuel to make it last past this point, and that kids won't be on the end saying it was here, now it's gone. We had 2 skating rinks, we had 3 bowling alleys and all that. A lot of that stuff has been diminished, and that's what I'm saying. We want to make sure that something is in place, resources are in place to keep it sustained.
Really?
And I'm excited to hear that engagement, because the way I read the county code, the county board shall fund. So the county board shall fund. If that's a priority of the county board, let's fund the heck out of it. You know, we're trying what we can, man. We're trying to get the grant dollars in. We're trying to make sure that this is sustainable. But you know, day to day, we're just trying to make it work right now. But the county board shall fund.
Mr. Wheeler.
County board shall fund under budgetary constraints.
Yes. Yes.
So I would love to hear your idea what you're proposing, Mr. Snipes. If you have something, please bring it.
That's what I said. You're saying churches and other things. So the county can just do it alone.
Private sector.
Right, business.
Oh, wait a minute. We're getting in a debate between the two.
No, I'm just giving facts.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on. Anything else, Mr. Rowe?
No, not for me.
Anything for Mr. Rowe?
I have something.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler.
Might as well do this now since he's still here and he hasn't jumped off the call. I was going to wait till the sheriff got up there, but I have some questions regarding the actions that the city of Kankakee took last night.
Okay.
Where do I start? The city council passed an ordinance to have everybody has to wear a mask when they're outside of their house. Okay, that's the basic, and they said the county and the state are going to enforce it. That was expressly said by the mayor and by Teska and Associates. What? Yeah, well, he'll have his time. I would like his comment as well. That's why I'm asking the sheriff's comment as well. Describe the type of enforcement the state's attorney's office will do on the city of Kankakee's new ordinance on everybody wears a mask outside the house, please.
So I did hear that portion of the city council meeting, and I guess the way I understood it was they're adopting their ordinance, which they're able to do. They can put it on their books, but their ordinance can only be enforced by their city and at their adjudication hearing through their hearing officer.
Adjudication, you guys.
So that city ordinance is really an internal enforcement thing within the city. If you write a ticket for a city ordinance, it goes to their adjudication court. You get a hearing. they can assess the fine. And that's why that $750 fine, that's where that actually comes from, because under the municipal code, when you establish your adjudication, they set caps on fines. I believe that's actually one of the higher or highest fines that the city could assess. But I think the comment about the state and local authorities will enforce it, I think what the mayor was getting at in that context is that that is a I don't want to call it a law. I don't know that it's a law, but it is a policy, I suppose, that has been handed down through the governor, through JCAR, and they may be looking for enforcement statewide or through the Attorney General's office or through every county, I suppose. But the county does not have the authority to go in and to enforce those local municipality ordinances.
Mr. Hunter,
Yeah. Jim, let me ask you this.
get in the microphone.
Yeah,
please.
sir. Well, yeah, you better spank me today. I don't know.
Well,
I didn't,
it's not recording.
yeah, yeah. I think, you know, if indeed that is a matter before the adjudication of the program with the city of Kankakee, can they appeal that to the circuit court? I'm, you know, my question.
They can file.
I know that answer, but
petition for administrative review, I believe it's what it's called.
Right.
And they can't come into the court and they can file that, and the judge would make a determination.
You know, that was rhetorical because I knew that was a process, but you know, since thousands of people are listening to us right now, they need to know what their legal redress might be.
And at that point, you know, if that's a petition to review a ruling that was handed down in the adjudication proceeding, that still wouldn't come before the state's attorney's office. So is the county or the state's attorney's office going to be enforcing the city's ordinance on masks? We can't. But are there other rules or regulations out there that any county in the state could enforce? I suppose. So I don't know if that's what the mayor was getting at last night, basically saying the state could enforce their own laws, but what they're adopting just kind of allows the city to enforce them, you know, within their adjudication process.
Mr. Snipes.
Or they could send the tickets to the courthouse, I suppose, and prosecute them locally with their city attorneys. That's always an option too.
Mr. Snipes.
I guess the issue would be anyone that's within the geographical area of limits of the city of Kankakee, whether they live in Kankakee or not, will be subjected to the city ordinance while they are in the city of Kankakee?
You know, you'd really have to talk with, you know, the mayor, the city's attorneys, their law enforcement to see how they're interpreting that. I don't, you know, I really don't want to speak to the city's ordinance. I wasn't part of drafting it. I haven't reviewed it. It's just something that's not, just really doesn't pertain at all to the state's attorney's office.
Mr. Wheeler?
Just a point, expect your fines in the mail. Where are we sitting at? We're sitting in the city of Kankakee without a mask on. I'm just mentioning it. And nor will I put this on, if I'm within 6 feet of somebody, I'll do it for them, because I respect other people's feelings and opinions. But this is ridiculous. It's a massive government overreach.
Anything else, Mr. Rowe?
No.
Okay, up next, we have the public defender, Mr. Pennowick. In your package, you have a copy of his monthly report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Kirkstra, second by Mr. Long. Comments on your report, Ed?
Morning, everyone, first of all. Basically, I mean, we're still plugging along. We're doing the best we can. I think we're still in a COVID hangover, for lack of a better expression. I just want to briefly, if I may, dovetail what Mr. Rowe was saying. The grand jury is such a time saver for the county, and also ultimately you know, for sheriff's deputy personnel, for local law enforcement. Grand jury is a very direct, straightforward proceeding requiring minimal, well, no input from my office, and you know, maybe one officer, maybe two officers from the jurisdiction with prelims. It's a court hearing, and so every time a case is called, instead of calling a case after case after case like they do a grand jury, we have to have one case at a time. It's very time consuming. So the grand jury is definitely a benefit, and you know, I agree with Mr. Rowe that it's good that we're implementing that again and being able to implement that. Also, regarding the jury trial that Mr. Rowe just did, I've talked to about, I think, 3 other public defenders within the state. We are one of the few counties doing jury trials, so we are doing our best to you know, cover our bases as far as COVID and making sure that it's done correctly, but we're doing it. So, you know, one of my primary concerns, and I know Mr. Rowe's concerns, is not only backlog, but people in custody not getting their trials. You know, as far as the county goes, we're doing as good as any other county in the state. Other than that, that's basically all I have at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Penwick on the reports? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Zoom.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar,
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Mr. Carrico,
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff,
Aye.
Ms. DeColo,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else,
Wait.
Ed?
We have to wait for the vote. I apologize, but that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next on the agenda, Mr. Latham from probation. In your packet, you have a copy of the monthly report from probation. Take a motion to approve. Mr.
Dunbar.
Kirkstra. Ms. Dunbar with a second. Comments on your report, Tom?
Sorry, I stepped in there. Good morning, everyone. Not much. As I've said to you, reported since June, we're doing everything we can to increase our face-to-face contacts every month. We're doing that, as you can see in the report. Mostly 90% or more are being done in the community, but we are working on different plans to increase contacts as we go forward during this COVID situation. You can also see drug testing has increased from 0 collected in April and May to 141 last month, but that's obviously still well below the normal 300 we collect in a normal month. You can see we have 18 individuals on GPS, 2 of them are juveniles, and speaking of juveniles, we have 6 in custody at River Valley currently. And that's all I have regarding the report.
Questions or comments for Mr. Latham on the report? Mr. Hunter.
Next week, let's meet, sir. We get
Yes.
a chance. I think we're overdue for that.
Yes, I'll give you a call, Mr. Hunter.
Okay, motion and a second. Let's start with Zoom.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar,
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield,
Aye.
Mr. Carrico,
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff,
Aye.
Ms. DeColo,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else, Tom?
That's all I have, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is the sheriff. You should have received a copy of the sheriff's report electronically, and you also have it in your packet. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Long, second by Mr. Hunter. Oh, sorry, Antonio.
Yep.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. One thing before you.
number 3.
Well, good morning. One thing before you approve the report, I did find an error. On the first, under A, if you look at monthly revenues, in 2019, they were $1,079,550. And according to this report, in August of 2020, it was $6,883,000. So unfortunately, that's not accurate. We wish it were, but it's not. It's actually 685 and some change. So, and that would then go to the average of $22,000 a day as opposed to $222,000 a day. So just to clarify that. And I had my wife convinced I don't make any errors, but
Yeah.
you know, it happens.
Sure, you know, some folks don't get that.
So the report's pretty basic. Our locals are staying consistent around 270. One thing to note, and I've talked about it before, from March the 18th, which was about the time that we closed things down at the jail, as far as visitors and outside agencies and entities coming into our jail, through today, the jail still booked in over 1,000 arrests in that time period. And if our jail administrator is watching, I apologize, but to this date, we still have no COVID in our jail. Yeah. So credit to the jail staff for what they do, being able to quarantine people when they come in, keep people out of the general population, I think has been a big plus. So one thing that we've talked about before, the number of individuals released into our community from the Illinois Department of Corrections is over 300 so far this year. That number is pretty consistent with the way it's been over the last, just historically, it's always higher than the number we send. And one thing I will add to what Mr. Rowe and Mr. Pennewick talked about, the preliminary hearing, and Ed touched on it a little bit, but the grand juries, we don't have to bring the inmate to the grand jury. The preliminary hearings, though, as Mr. Pennewick said, are hearings, and we are required to do that. We can't do that over video. So when we were doing those preliminary hearings pretty regularly during COVID, it was tying up jail staff, patrol staff to have inmates from the jail brought over to the courthouse for those hearings. So now that we're back to grand juries, hopefully that'll ease our workload a little bit. But it was, the preliminary hearings are a burden on our staff for those hearings that take place. Questions on the corrections side? A couple positives on the sworn side, although we wish it were zero. Through August of this year, we've had 6 fatal accidents in the county. Last year we had 24 during the year. So that number trends down. Obviously the perfect number for us would be 0. And that's what we hope for, but unfortunately we are at 6 this year. Our calls for service on the patrol side have increased significantly. And we're up about 7,000 calls from this same time last year. So that's significant for our deputies out on the street. Civil process, that number is down for a couple of reasons. Number one, the courthouse was closed for a period of time, so there were no court hearings, so we were serving no papers for court dates. And at this point, there are no evictions, no sheriff sales, so we're not serving papers for those either. So those numbers have dropped significantly during COVID. So, questions on that?
Any questions on the report? Okay, we have a motion and a second with the duly noted corrections. Start with Zoom, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Ms. DiColo?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Under animal control, a couple things. I think you may have seen when COVID first hit, know if people were taking better care of their animals, but our animal population March and April were almost nil. We weren't entirely empty, but you know, we had a few animals. As we've opened up, so is our shelter, and we are, you know, back to close to getting full again. But you know, they're maintaining. They are getting animals out that are adoptable and getting them to shelters that can adopt them and adopt them out to good homes. And the last issue I'll mention just briefly, Animal Control, I believe, has 4 vehicles, all of which are significantly aged. And we are putting together a proposal to kind of update our fleet, if you will, as we get to that point like we did with our squad cars, where we're putting more money into animal control vehicles than it would cost to almost buy a new one. So we will bring something back. If we don't get it to finance, we'll bring it back here.
I believe that one vehicle had 169,000 on it, according to the report.
Yeah, I think that's the highest one. Yeah.
Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, I just I happened to watch the, I don't know how to even describe it, the council meeting last night. There was an issue that came up about a bill, and evidently the aldermen are not aware of the fact that there was a bill submitted by the county for animal control. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of like scratching their heads, not knowing, you know, what is this about? You know, they don't seem to understand that when code enforcement calls or the police call, you guys respond. And for that response, you submit a bill for the services that you provide. My question, I think last meeting, you were working on some contracts with other entities, villages and so forth. Where are you with those contracts?
So I believe last month, I think we said we were shoring up some language, which we've got shored up. The question now becomes, for the agencies, what exactly do they want us to do? Do they want us to just focus on dogs? Or do they want us to focus on both? And so that's the question that we are sending back to all the municipalities, because they'll be different. Some will want us to deal with dogs and cats.
Raccoons,
no, that's not us.
No?
That's no.
I've called you guys. I called Moss, and he brought me some traps over, you know, for my next door neighbor who was a widower.
Well, we would refer you to.
Oh well, that was. That's been a while.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so they are in the process, and Carrie Laird and I are getting set to. Bourbonnais is probably the first one they've showed the most interest, although we have discussed with every municipality that option, and all seem very interested. And it's just a matter of probably getting the proposal to Bourbonnais first, and letting their trustees sign it, and then move forward with Bradley, City of Kankakee, and those other municipalities.
Do you have you made any presentations at the County Mayors Association?
We did. We did. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, all of them. That's where they all kind of showed interest, that they wanted that. Yeah, because the problem right now, Mr. Hunter, is, like, for instance, the city, just to use them as an example, if the city police get called to a house with an animal, the city police can't call us. They have to go through code enforcement. So they call code calls us. We want to streamline all that and take everybody out of the picture and just be able to respond to do what's best for the animal and the people that are where they're at. So yeah, it's quite confusing with each municipality that we're dealing with.
Okay.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I found that comment surprising last night, Mr. Hunter, when I was watching that as well. Especially since I believe Dee Regas and our former animal control administrator went over there and spoke to the city council during the term of all the people who were questioning it.
Did they approve to pay the bill? That's all I care about.
Yeah. No, it's just odd. I found it odd that we went and talked to them specifically at the city council about this very thing.
Yeah.
And then to not realize, you know, later. So I think that maybe some engagement on their part might help.
An in-service or the learning curve.
No doubt.
Would that include groundhogs? Had an infestation.
No.
Okay.
No groundhogs. Domestic animals.
Any other questions for the sheriff on animal control? Okay, I'm not gonna let you get out of here without, because you can see that I wrote that in red. What's the state of us now for housing prisoners?
Well, I think the last bill I sent, the total ended up being 267 or
I
something.
think that was last month.
Was last month's, and then so when we brought these individuals to DOC, obviously that number is down. Just so, and it's a good point, because we ended up bringing the 4 we had left. We ended up being able to bring them. We were able to get the appropriate quarantining, the appropriate testing, which we didn't think would be possible, but credit to the hospitals for expediting the testing for us. And we were able to get rid of that's probably a bad term, but transfer the 4 individuals, 2 females, 2 males, to different facilities. So the remainder of that is going to be minimal.
Okay.
But that's not to say that somebody gets sentenced now and we hold them. You know, I don't know what the state's going to do long term, if they're going to continue this route or whatever, but it'll be problematic regardless.
Okay. Mr. Hunter.
Yeah. I got a question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Sheriff.
No, usually Mr. Hess does that. So.
You know, the city recently got a $47,000, $48,000 grant for what do you call it, a shot locator?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you know, back in the day, when they had a map of the city, they had pins on, and different color pins on where the shootings and the different crimes transpire. I thought that would depict what's going on in the city and the types of crime and so forth, and they have the empirical evidence. Do you think that's going to help within, I don't know how many seconds it'll determine where the shots have been fired, and then they can deploy their staff to the appropriate location? Do they consult with you? Have they consulted with you regarding some of those initiatives? Because like this weekend, something transpired and there were 4 or 5 cop cars in my block. And next door I have a widower. East of me I have a widower. Down the street there are 2 other widowers on my block. And of course my phone calls, you know, boom, 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 boom. Stevie, what's happening? What's happening? And I was just wondering if that's going to help, and how much we cooperate or collaborate with the city regarding all these shootings, you know, south of Snipes and east of and west of him. You know, what's happening? I mean, I thought maybe they know where they are, but there doesn't seem to be very much closure to that stuff.
Well, as far as corroboration, I would say yes. I mean, we meet as chiefs and sheriffs every Monday, and discuss what's going on, where it's going on. And you talk about the maps that you had with the pins. Well, now they do that on computers. So it's all computerized,
right?
Where, you know, you can pull up in Tyler Technologies New World that we use, that everybody in the county uses, has that capability to see where not just gunshots, but anything, whether it's burglaries, whether it's criminal damage, you can see all of that, where it's happening. As far as anything that we've been involved with their grant, no, we have not been involved with that. But I will tell you that the police chiefs in the county, all the police agencies, we all share information, and because a lot of the things that happen in the city happen in other municipalities as well. And as Mr. Latham, if he's still on, will tell you, you know, every agency is involved with the same individuals who are doing a lot of this.
And do you have a mobile camera? I know there were some idiots across the street from me who were committing crimes in Roma Park. They tried to break in my neighbor's house, who was 104, and she keeps her lights on the front porch and the back porch. And I raised $1,000 worth of hell about it, and it kind of fell on deaf ears regarding that. And that goes back a little ways. And I was wondering, do you have such a piece of equipment? Because I heard the chief last night, Kankakee City Police, was saying that one of their cameras was down and is going to cost $12,000 to get it repaired. Do you have one of those mobile cameras at all?
We do not. We have shared with city before. The city allows us, we didn't break it, but city has allowed us to use it in the past. And those are, I think, new. We priced them, a couple of them out there around $50-some thousand. But no, we utilize cities if we need one.
DOJ eligible?
Probably.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the sheriff? Would you like to make any comments about enforcing?
No, Mr. Rowe handled it so eloquently, there's nothing I can add to it.
Very good. Thank you. Up next, the coroner's office. I believe it's Mr. Cavender this morning. In your package, you have a copy of the monthly report and the monthly receipts of money. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Kirkstra, second by Mr. Long. Comments on the report? Eric?
Morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Pretty standard report. Just wanted to point out a few things, kind of give you a little bit of a better snapshot of where we're really at right now. We're looking at 1,033 calls on the year compared year to date. Last year, we were at 956. So that's an increase of 77 over last year already. If you look at the autopsy line, you'll see that in the entire year so far, we've had 90 autopsies. Keep in mind that last year we were at 89 for the entire year. So we will definitely be over that. The last 7 days, we've done 9 autopsies alone. So it's been incredibly busy. The average amount of autopsies this year has been right around 10. So you can expect autopsies in the month of September to be significantly higher than any other month this year. As far as this report, that's all I have.
Any questions on the report? We have a motion and a second. Start with Zoom, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Ms. Dunbar?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Ms. Zucolo? Mr. Spotson?
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I heard Brenda come in.
Yep, I'm in. Aye.
Thank you.
What else, Eric?
Just wanted to give a brief update on overdoses. We're currently sitting at 36 confirmed overdose cases for the year, with 5 additional pending cases that we're 100% confident will be eventually added to that total. The average age continues to be right around 40 years old. Keep in mind that in 2017, we had 56 overdoses for the year. And as of right now, if you factor out where we're at versus what's left for the year, we're on target to be right around 52. So we'll be very close to that 56 number. We've already overpassed last year's number of 29 and also 29 and 18. So those are definitely things that we're continuing to look at and keep a close eye on. As far as COVID deaths, we stand at 71 in the county. The average age of those deaths is 81 years old. In the month of August, there were 4 total COVID deaths in our county. and we've had one thus far in September.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Eric. Did you guys do the autopsies for Iroquois County recently of their deaths in the jail?
We did. Iroquois County pays our county a facility rental fee, and then they hire our doctor to complete the autopsy. So the only involvement that we have in that case is the fact that they used our facility. Everything else goes through Iroquois County. We have nothing to do with anything that transpired down there or whatever the end result will be from that case.
Sure. And so was the determination made on COD?
Not as of now. It's
Not
all
as of yet.
pending further studies as far as I'm aware.
Okay. And are those numbers included in our numbers? Since
They
you
are
did the
not. Those
autopsies?
any death that occurs in our county is what we're reporting on. Any death that's in Iroquois County is something that their coroner would be responsible for reporting on.
So it's total autopsies is what I'm getting at. That those
No,
two
that
are
would
not
be
on.
if you look at our reports.
Outside.
Thought it was on there
Outside
somewhere.
autopsies, I see it.
Yeah, outside autopsies. There you go. That would be Iroquois County. So you
Okay.
can see they've had 14 outside autopsies this year, and then where it says like outside X-rays, those would be X-rays that we performed for Iroquois County at our facility as well. And those are separate of the 90 autopsies that we've done and the 14 X-rays that we've done.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, just a follow-up to that, because I was whispering back to the chairman regarding those two autopsies in Iroquois County in Watseka. You know, there'd been quite a bit of hullabaloo on Facebook about, you know, allegations about what transpired down there. Now, you indicated, and one of the questions I'd posed to the chairman was the autopsies. Do you know if indeed there was another independent autopsy done on one or both of the decedents?
I do not. Again, that's something that the Iroquois County coroner would have to answer.
We had heard that one of the families was asking for an independent autopsy, and I was just wondering, have you guys heard, or if it would be within the domain of Iroquois County, have the toxicology reports come back? As I understand, it takes, what, a couple weeks to get those results back?
Yes, tox generally takes anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks to complete.
Oh, okay.
But again, that's not something that we would have any involvement in. That would all go through Iroquois County.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the coroner's office? Mr. Snipes.
I wanted to point out one more thing. You know, in the last number of years, we've been really involved in a lot of community things, and with the pandemic this year, that just hasn't happened. So we've had to turn to some other sources of engaging with the public. And I wanted to point out that our website has become a really popular point of interest for a lot of people. We've been updating that daily with statistics, not only on overdoses and COVID, motor vehicle accidents, suicides, those types of things. And I found it interesting that in 2019, throughout the entire year, we had 4,620 page views. In the month of August alone, we had 7,702. So a significant increase in viewership on there, as well as on social media, where in the last 14 days, we've engaged with 57,100 people, and in the last couple months, over 300,000 people. So we're still trying to get our message out and make the community aware of what's going on here and keep them safe throughout this crazy world that we're living in. That's it, unless there's any other questions.
Mr. Snipes.
Hey, Eric, thanks. Can you, I've had several individuals call me as to where they can obtain the breakdown of these COVID-19 deaths via ethnicity. They saw in the journal, I believe is what they said, that there was like an 83% white, 7% African American breakdown. And they didn't know where they got that information because they did not see it on CDC, neither on the county website. So could you direct me so I can tell them where that breakdown would be via ethnicity?
I'm not sure where the CDC is providing that information. I'm sure it's probably somewhere hidden on their website. I can tell you that that type of information is on our website. If you go to www.kankakee-county-coroner.org, click on statistics or the link on the main page that says COVID-19. You scroll down a little bit and you'll see that it says COVID-19 deaths by race. And of the 71 deaths this year from COVID in our county, 58 have been Caucasian, 8 African American, 4 Hispanic, and 1 Asian Indian.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, just one final comment. I think it was Snipes, refresh my memory. I had the responsibility with the NAACP. We had a opioids panel that consisted of the state's attorney, the coroner, KMEG, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Deputy Chief Willie Hunt. We would like to see you guys do that again. I learned something there, and it was well attended regarding the statistical information. I think it may even had the breakdown of the demographics and some of the technical information regarding fentanyl and cocaine and all this other stuff. But it was very, very, very informative. And I think it was a learning process for a lot of us. You know, some folk, and I think it was before the entire body, we had a very good participation of lay people, professional people, a rainbow of folks who were there, and they received rave reviews, and the county representation on the panel was substantial. And I'd like to see that happen again, and maybe I'll talk to the sheriff. I think the sheriff was there too. And we'd like to see those guys revisit that and present some more information, some updates. But I just want to take my hat off to you guys. You guys did a hell of a job. It was very, very informative.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anything else for the coroner's office? Thank you.
Thanks.
Any old business to come before the committee? Any old business? New business, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll try to make it brief. We got paid for the first courthouse grant. So we got our $160,000+ from the state for, the Circle Drive, the ADA improvements, handrails, all that stuff we did over at the courthouse. We spent probably another $40,000 on top of that, because we figured since we had to take everything down for the Circle Drive, we might as well fix it for the next 40 years, hopefully. Obviously asphalt patching aside, for the major structural issues. Also, Representative Parkhurst had got the governor to commit to $400,000 for our courthouse. That's been programmed into 2021. So that money is going to be released in 21. Hopefully it's not predicated on something passing in a vote to the public, as far as, the resources are pledged from the sales or the income tax issue. But hopefully it rests outside of that. So I would hope that, this board we know what we need to do over there. There are still improvements, and it's a 100+ building. Inside, there's some things we need to do, but it's brick and mortar. It's not computer systems. It's not anything else. So know that we'll be addressing that in building and grounds coming up in the future. But I thought it was good news. The last time we got a grant from the state, they never paid it. We spent the money and they never paid us back.
Correct.
And this time they actually did it. So go buy a lottery ticket. It's your lucky day.
Any other new business to come before the committee? Any other new business? Mr. Kirkstra.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Okay, second by Mr. Snipes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.